Hello, dear friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you are watching us. Have a good rest of your day. I'm Daniel Kamarov. Welcome to my podcast on YouTube. We continue our meetings with the outstanding religious leaders, scientists, and ordinary people under the rubric of keeping the faith. I want to say a few words about myself and about my identity. I was born and lived in Belarus, where Jews and Muslims have lived peacefully together with representatives of other nations and religions for more than 6 centuries. During World War II, the Nazis, who came from a country that seemed to be built on Christian values, destroyed about 800,000 Jews, which was more than 80% of the Jewish populations of the country. This means that every Jewish family has a personal history of the Holocaust and its own psychological trauma. Now, I live and study at a school in Israel. One day I thought about, why is there a religious component in modern conflicts and bloody wars? I asked myself, maybe religions have something evil in them, that despite all the good intentions, commandments, not to murder, people continue to kill each other. That is how my channel was created. Here I meet with representatives of different nations, different religions, and experts to understand the role of religions in the modern world and the importance of interfaith dialogue, mutual assistance, and peace building. Today we meet with Imam Abdullah Antepli, a global recognized interfaith scholar, a leader of cross-cultural dialogue, and a professor at Duke University in the United States. He currently teaches interfaith relations and public policy at Duke's Divinity School and Sanford School of Public Policy. Imam Antepli also serves as a faculty member in the Duke Divinity School, teaching a variety of courses on Islam and Muslim cultures. He is also a co-director of a program on Jewish-Muslim relations at the Shalom Hartman Institute. Dear Imam Abdullah, Salam Shalom.
Wa alaikum salam wa alaikum shalom. Thank you, Daniel, and Chag Sameach. I hope you're having a beautiful Passover.
Thank you for the honor and privilege to meet you and learn from you. You are widely known as one of the leaders of the Muslim community in America and a great friend of the Jewish people.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and honor as well. It's been a wonderful journey with incredible love, delight, and tension every once in a while. It's not an easy intersection to explore.
Of course, of course. Imam Abdullah, you were born in Turkey in a secular family. I'd like to ask about your attitude towards Jews in your childhood and youth. Did you first see and meet Jews in person, or did you feel hostility and enmity towards the representatives of this people before that?
Mm-hmm. No, I never met a Jew or a Jewish person until I went to visit West Bank in my first year college. But in a way, I never really met anyone who was Jewish. But the Jews as people, Judaism as a religion, Zionism as an ideology, and Israel and Israeli-Palestinian conflict was very much present in the internal discourse in Turkey, of all the international issues and news. Even though my upbringing were incredibly secular and nationalistic, as we were trying to understand the world and ourselves, why Turkey, after centuries of very successful empire, Ottoman Empire, and economically, socially, politically successful period, why that civilization has declined and has been failing and been unsuccessful since then. One of the primary reasons of that guilt assigning was to Jews and Jewish communities, that people around me were introduced to literature or a discourse that the Jews, as they call it, or the Zionist conspiracy, were behind all parts of global power structure, and they were there to humiliate Islam and Muslims and Turks, and they were one of the reasons why we were behind, why we were falling behind. And Israel's existence and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was an important indication and validation of this highly unimpressive, miserable situation. So in a way, Jews were there as an evil reality, as a scary reality, as an enemy reality, as part of the discourse. But I never actually met any Jews until much later.
I see. Thank you for that answer. And you called yourself a recovering anti-Semite. Jewish figures, including Such eminent figures as Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs have spoken of the blessing of having such a friend like you. How did your recovery process begin, and what was the trigger?
Yes, I call it myself as a recovering anti-Semite for two main reasons. One, I was exposed to an incredibly poisonous, toxic, evil anti-Semitic literature very early in my life, and I've swallowed so much of it. Once you have hate of that magnitude early on in your system, it is almost like an untreatable virus. It never goes away. It's in your system. And my situation is also very similar to, I think, most Jewish, Muslim, and Christian communities, because the anti-Semitism has been in our literature, in our liturgy. It's been repeated enough number of times. I would say, as it was true for me individually, the anti-Semitism as a form of hate, as an untreatable virus in our system, is also true for collectively. So it never goes away. Therefore, once you realize that it has, you have been infected by this hate, by this virus, it is your ethical, moral responsibility to make sure the rest of your life you have to put an ethical, moral force, like what we do for all untreatable viruses, to make sure it will stay marginal, it will stay muted. And that's why I never say recovered, even though, as you alluded and implied, I came a long way. I am now working tirelessly. And that's the second reason I call it a recovering anti-Semite, because it's not enough that I recovered. I turned this, my own recovery, as an educational, ethical, moral journey for my fellow human beings in general, and fight all other forms of hate. Very quickly, what made me slow down and ultimately take the nearest exit is primarily was me becoming religious. The sophisticated anti-Semitic literature was introduced in the context of my secular upbringing, but later on I got fascinated by Islam. I became very Muslim. I became very serious about Islam and religious studies. I wanted to learn this religion and own it for myself, not just as an identity in the society. And I was lucky. My earlier Quran teachers, my Islam teachers, were heavily focusing on ethics and teaching the basic core ethical, moral philosophies of Islam. So if you really study ethics, and if the ethical and moral education is successful, you can reconcile all the poison, hatred that you have for anybody. If you build a successful moral dashboard, it'll give you the kind of warnings and all the signals, meaning you cannot believe in these ethical, moral principles and yet categorically hold all these horrible views about any group. In my case, in Judaism and Islam, it really slowed me down in the highway of hate. When I became seriously Muslim, it created a conflict that thankfully the beauty of Islam, beauty of my religion, and its moderate central teaching saved me and allowed me to start taking that poison out of my system. But ultimately, what made me sort of really take this incredible series is when I first visited Israel, Palestine, when I met God-fearing, God-loving Jews, and when I understood the complexities of Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It really shattered what I know of Jews, Judaism, Zionism. And since then, it shaped who I am. Everything that I do in my personal and professional life is pretty much shaped and informed through this recovery process.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank you for the job that you do in terms of interfaith dialogue and trying to stop anti-Semitism. I'd like to start the next question with a Jewish joke. A Jewish man on the subway is reading an Arab newspaper. A friend of his, who happened to be riding in the same subway car, noticed this strange phenomenon. He approached him. Moshe, have you lost your mind? Why are you reading an Arab newspaper? Moshe replied. Well, I used to read a Jewish newspaper. What did I find? Jews being persecuted, Israel being attacked, Jews disappearing through assimilation and intermarriage, many Jews living in poverty. So I switched to an Arab newspaper. Now what do I find? Jews know all the banks, Jews control the media, Jews are all rich and powerful, Jews rule the world. The news are just so much better. A lot of Jews live in information bubbles. For example, that Jews want want to take over the world. What do you, as a spiritual leader of the Muslim community and a professor at Duke, help to dispel or drive out such stereotypes?
Before I answer this wonderful question and a very funny joke, Daniel, I highly encourage you when you tell this joke again, instead of saying Arab newspaper, say an anti-Semitic newspaper or something along those lines, because it implies as if all Arab newspapers are anti-Semitic or all Arab media outlets are covering Jews in such horrific and anti-Semitic way. That's not true, because without even knowing and without even intending to, you might even promote anti-Muslim bias, anti-Arab hatred, or Islamophobia without even realizing. So having said that, the anti-Semitism is it's not the oldest form of hate, and it comes in two categories: either punching up, in a way, hating Jews in such a way because of their demonic superior powers, glorifying, exaggerating, to a point that as if they are in charge of anything and everything, as the joke implies. But also there is a punching down, hating down, seeing them as filthy, seeing them as disgusting, subhuman, almost a completely condemned reality. So we have to understand both, not just punching up, but also punching down. Your joke implies that some of the anti-Semitic literature portrays and describes Jews as this superior beings, very powerful. But that's only one side of one half of the anti-Semitic literature. The other half is completely, and I have many other jokes in myself. When I first came to the United States, I was helping a Jewish homeless person as part of my ministry in the homeless community. And a friend of mine from Turkey just texted, "What are you doing? What are you up to?" I said, "I'm helping this poor Jewish man who's homeless, who has mental health issues." He didn't believe me that could be a poor Jewish person, or that could be a homeless Jewish person. I mean, that tells you how prevalent that anti-Semitism is. He said, "Can you take a picture? There must be only one poor Jewish person, and then you found him. I think it's an important." I said, "Believe me, there are poor Jews, dumb Jews, smart Jews. They, like all human beings, both in terms of punching up and down. What we need to do is to first, in two major ways, silence the elements of anti-Semitic resources, both religious and otherwise, that dehumanizes Jews, that takes the humanity out of Judaism and Jewish people, either by exaggerating and punching them up, thinking them as superior beings or inferior beings. And then the second thing that we need to do is to make sure you replace it with ethical, moral teachings that will rehumanize them, that will show Jewish community, Jews, Judaism as religion in its all human complexity, with the good, bad, and ugly that exists for Turks, for Pakistanis, for Indonesians and Chinese. So in a way, we have to normalize them in the way that our tradition, our faith tradition, normalizes them. For example, what I do, I reteach part of Islamic history and the Muhammad, the peace be upon him, the Prophet of Islam, his relationship with the Jewish community. As a result of this dehumanization, like all conflicts, Muslims and Jews, they go and selectively rewrite their own history. They selectively emphasize and retell the part of the history that perpetuates, that contributes more to the dehumanization, either as, again, superior beings or inferior beings, as much as possible. Whereas if you look at the Islamic history, especially during the time of the Muhammad, peace be upon him, he had good and bad relationship with the people of his community, because Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet of Islam, shapes the Islamic understanding. It's the main, the first and most important, most successful human attempt to understand the Quran. So both in the descriptions of the Jews in the Quran, as well as Muhammad's relationship with his contemporary Jewish communities, both Jews and Muslims, is quite fascinating. They only know and remember episodes where Muhammad was in conflict with certain Jewish communities. There were 14 different tribes. Muhammad had wonderful relationship with 12, 13 of them. He married to 2 Jewish women. One of them converted to Islam, Safiya, and one of them didn't. She remained Jewish, Radia, and she died as Jewish human person, and she buried through Jewish rituals. When I tell the Muslim community, Muhammad, our prophet, our beloved prophet, whom we love and try to emulate and pattern, had Jewish in-laws. He attended Shabbat services. He ate kosher food. He had Jewish community members in his time. It's incredible. I can see in their body language that kind of challenge to levels of dehumanization of Jews in them, and also that powerful story forcing them to rehumanize Jewish community as any other human communities.
Thank you so much. And for your first remark, I did not intend to offend anyone in any way.
Oh, no.
And that is really interesting. I didn't know that history of the prophet, and that is really interesting. And my next question is, once I saw a short video, an actor dressed in white Arab Muslim robes with a backpack is standing at the bus stop in some English-speaking country. There are other people there waiting for the bus. At some point, the actor drops his backpack and starts running away. All the people at the bus stop start running away in panic. What do you think? What can we successfully do to counter Islamophobia?
It's a billion-dollar question, my friend, and it's very, very difficult to. First of all, Islamophobia and that quick association of Islam with violence, extremism, death, terrorism is not going to collectively go away unless we as the humanity will see less of terrorism in the name of Islam, less of extremism in the name of Islam, and also collective Muslim majority countries and societies that has been gaining its civilizational, economic, social, political health and functioning as such. So that's a big global macro level problem. It will take some time for us to. So there is nothing we can do because Islamic extremism and Islamic terrorism, Muslim extremism, long list of terror organizations, evil people like Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, these are not fiction. It exists. They are doing barbaric and evil things in the name of Islam. Yet it's only a very few small minority, yet most of its victims, unfortunately, are Muslims themselves. They kill more Muslims, they destroy more Muslim lives than anything else. But inevitably, they shape the image of Islam as a religion and Muslims as people globally because of their heinous, treacherous, and evil acts and activities. So big picture solution, how to do it, what to do, will take some time. But in the micro level, a little bit of education and decency, as I am passionately making an appeal to be careful not to unintentionally stereotype any community and make unhelpful generalization, as I make an ethical moral appeal to my own community to rehumanize and do not dehumanize Jews and Jewish people and the Jewish community by shaping their image by the worst members of that community. So the same applies to my non-Muslim brothers and sisters as well. Would you want the worst? Are there Jewish terrorists? Yes. Are they Jewish racists? Yes. Are there people who happen to be Jewish but with rotten soul and repugnant moral failures? Yes. And do you want these people to shape the image of Judaism and Jews all around the world? Do you want Meir Kahane or Baruch Goldstein to be the ambassadors and representatives of Jews? Do you want these names to come to mind when you think of Jews and Judaism? No. So why would you do that to to Muslims then define 1400 years of religion with 1.8 billion people only with the worst members of it. I think conceptually, a little bit of education, like it helped me in my own struggle with my own anti-Semitism. But ultimately, what really provides a success is for those of us who care, defeating Muslim anti-Semitism, also not allowing Jewish Islamophobia or any other Islamophobia in any other communities. We need to expose people creatively to meet Muslims, have Muslim friends, visit Muslim homes, visit Muslim spaces. You are in Israel studying, even though you are in parts of Israel, maybe Jewish majority, but I hope you will take this as an ethical moral homework to yourself. 20% of Israeli society is Palestinian, and majority of them are Muslim. So you will have, if you take one extra mile and take this as an ethical moral mission, you can pick up, in addition to wonderful education on Jews and Judaism, and whatever you are doing there through your school, but you can also pick up incredible good Muslim friends, Arab friends, and Palestinian friends, and equip yourself that, oh, there's a problem here, but the problem exists in A, B, C, D, E situations, but it's not generally all Muslims and everybody else.
Thank you. And we study, as you already mentioned, I do study in a school in Israel, and we do study side by side, and they're always great and very, very, how should I say this? There are never any problems, and we speak as equals, and we discuss topics, and it's always a great time. In the interviews with you, you mentioned the Psalm of David, Shir Allah Adonai Shir Chadash, the Sing to the Lord a new song. What kind of a new song is needed with synergy or cooperation efforts from all sides, and new interreligious cultures, not of walls, but of bridges that would allow representatives of Abrahamic and other religions to avoid conflicts and understanding the value of interfaith peace?
Yeah, the Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash, first of all, requires certain level of intellectual and moral humility. We have to understand that the Jewish-Muslim relations is in a very unimpressive state right now. It'll be a joke to even call it a relationship in so many parts of the world. As you were referring to this Arab-looking man dropping a backpack and running, you don't even have to dress up like an Arab man. If you walk into any Jewish space speaking Arabic, or greeting people with a name tag that's Muslim sounding, you can infuse a lot of anxiety and fear into the people. So the Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash, before we talk about what new songs is required, it requires a really clear understanding and acknowledgement that we messed up as Jews and Muslims. Over the decades, we didn't take advantages of the similarities of Judaism and Islam, where our normative religion, our halakhic thinking, and the Sharia thinking is almost the same. We understand monotheism similarly. We connect to divine vertically in almost identical ways. More importantly, we take that divine love to Hashem, the God Allah, and manifest horizontally in human relations, also very similarly. In order to be a good Jew and good Muslim, it's not enough that you daven and pray, but also your food has to be Muslim and Jewish. Your water has to be, your dress code. In a way, there's a negotiation of every aspect of life that, there is no any other religion similar to Judaism and Islam in that sense. And our history, starting from Muhammad all the way to late 19th, early 20th century, compared to Jewish experience in where you are coming from, the Christian Europe, this weekend, today is the Palm Sunday, and next Friday is the Good Friday, and then the Holy Week. If you look at what this calendar event meant for Christian Europe, it wasn't good for everyone. I mean, pogroms and Jew killing was a sport, almost a religious entertainment for many, many periods of the European history. If you compare that to what was going on in the Muslim majority world, even though it wasn't egalitarian, it wasn't equal, but Jews had a much better time, and they weren't isolated. They were part of the Muslim communities in the Middle East and North Africa, and they produced a joint civilization for many, many centuries. So we, despite our religious similarities and despite relatively better history, unfortunately, we allow this deterioration and decline, and we damage our relationship through the creation of the State of Israel. And we are in a very, very unfortunate situation now where Muslim anti-Semitism is all-time high, and the anti-Arab hatred and Islamophobia is high. And there's an active conflict going on with not only in the Middle East, but if you look wherever the Jews and Muslims are, both Europe as well as North America, there are remarkable tension. So first, as in Yom Kippur, we do this chest beating. First, we have to understand that we are in red ink, we are in minus. And like any other failures, ethical, moral failures, it's almost similar to our physical health failures. If I see you in 10 years, God forbid, Daniel, you are like 700 pounds, giant with all sorts of diseases and sicknesses, what am I going to say? What have you been doing in the last 10 years? And how can we reverse this unhealthy lifestyle? How can we make sure we reverse engineer what led you to this destructive lifestyle? The outcome is being unhealthy. We just have to very carefully through these new songs that we have been developing to reverse engineers, find out the root causes of this deterioration between Jews and Muslims, and reverse engineer in wherever we can in some creative ways by using the effect and impact of religion. Because still, religion matters. Religion is an active and functional currency in both Jewish and Muslim communities. And the only antidote, only solution to religious problem or religious poison, the only answer to evil religion is good religion. You cannot solve the problems that is coming out of religious milieu, religious landscape with secular means. You're going to have to treat and heal. What is a vaccine? Vaccine is a moderated and upgraded version of this very same disease that you inject into the body, and then it heals the body. In a way, Judaism and Islam, as two wonderful religions, have been infected by diseases, many forms of hate. And we have to use what is in the religion, what is in the halakha, what is in the sharia to heal where we are now. So in a way, I'm hesitant to be prescriptive. I'm only describing, I'm being descriptive, because it's not the same. It is a cancer all over the place, but you don't treat the pancreatic cancer with the medicine that you develop for brain cancer. So every new song, every Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash, depending on where you are, in what context you are operating, it needs to be developed by the indigenous people's needs and according to their own realities.
Definitely, definitely. And while we're already on the topic of interfaith communication and interreligious communication, do you think there is a chance that interfaith communication itself could turn into its own kind of religion, just interfaith dialogue for interfaith dialogue, with people gathering, praying together, each in accordance with their own tradition, and eating together and dispersing? What do you think should be the result of interreligious communication?
That is one of my biggest fear about interfaith in general. Quite honestly, I respect if that is the case, that's fine. You have to understand if some people mix interfaith religion to itself, but I think it would be such a huge disservice to the accumulated wisdom and the accumulated knowledge and all these centuries-long developed particularisms that each and every religion is building. If interfaith dialogue is only done by people who are very liberal, progressive. I don't know, these terms don't make much sense in the religious context sometimes, but who doesn't put so much value in the particularisms of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, it could lead there. And if that's your style and choice, of course I respect, but that's not how I understand interfaith. I like the interfaith conversations, cross-faith conversations that is done by people who take their religion seriously, who take their particularism seriously, who takes these particularistic aspects of their religion as a sacred trust by their ancestors to them, and has deep loyalty to the tradition, and has a sense of duty, has a sense of trust that I need to preserve much of what I received from my ancestors, and I have a moral obligation to transmit it to the younger generation. If interfaith done between these kind of people, it will never lead into a religion to itself. It will do something that Christer Stendhal, the late Swedish cardinal or archbishop, he coined the term holy envy. Holy envy. It is an ultimate prize in a meaningful, serious interfaith conversation that is done by people who are deeply rooted in their own faith tradition. You conduct this interfaith dialogue, and as a result, not only you learn, you develop so much knowledge and appreciation about the other side, but it informs you. You become, that experience of trying to get to know the other, religiously other, become a mirror that you see yourself in that experience, and then you develop a much deeper connectedness to your own faith tradition as you develop holy envy, holy jealousy towards some aspects of each religion that is so uniquely different than yours.
Thank you. Do you think that that interfaith dialogue has a greater risk of blending religions, or maybe it can in a way strengthen our own beliefs and grow respect for other religions, as we identify many similarities in beliefs and rituals?
Yes, it can do exactly both of the things. It could be a threat, it could be flattening the differences, it could dilute the borders and unique particular identities of the religion. I see this all the time. And then it sort of turns into some sort of a blend. It became a process of melting pot. You put these religions into one pot, and then but so far, religious genes are very resilient. I don't know if there are people or communities who do these blending, but it never led to a grand scale assimilation or disappearance of any religion at all. It remained marginal. And even I've seen many people who sort of got attracted to the kind of universalistic, less particularistic aspects of just all religions are okay. Everybody's climbing to the same mountaintop. People are taking different paths. I've seen even people who spending a number of years in that kind of philosophy, finding it not satisfactory, not incredibly appealing, attractive, and they went back to the traditions that they grew up in.
And you're a co-director of the Jewish-Muslim Relations Program at the Shalom Hartman Institute. Please tell us about the institute and its program, and which you, despite the initial Jewish skepticism, persistently promote. Why is interfaith education so important for American Muslims and for American Jews
This is
too?
one experiment that I am so grateful and proud I was able to initiate, and I was able to lead it. The program has now completed its mission, and it's no longer, we are no longer running the program anymore. A, because after October 7, it's not possible. But B, we achieved what we wanted to achieve. This is not an interfaith, you put it not correctly, it's not an interfaith dialogue, but it's an interfaith education. It's an interfaith engagement. most interfaith dialogue, representative of people come and exchange information. This is what I believe. This is Jewish perspective, Muslim perspective. This was by design, a group of Muslims from North America traveling to Israel and in a year-long fellowship, book-ended by 2 trips to Shalom Hartman campus, and studying Judaism, Zionism, and Israel with no obligation to agree or even like what they learn, but making this one-way journey into the world of Jews and Judaism to see if they can develop a knowledge, appreciation, and understanding to relate to their Jewish colleagues, Jewish neighbors, and Jewish conversation partners in North America, in Canada, and the United States better. So it was a very unique engagement, and Shalom Hartman was an ideal place to run such an experiment because it's not an interfaith organization. It's a deeply rooted Jewish Israeli American organization teaching many aspects of traditional Judaism, primarily, if not exclusively, to Jews of all different backgrounds. And we wanted to just receive and download the same education. It was an attempt for about 300 Muslims to see if I can make an attempt to see the world through the eyes of Jews, the broad spectrum of views that exist in the Jewish community, and then take that educational investment in education to North America and engage with Jewish and Jewish communities better. And also, equally important, what I was hoping, which has been incredibly successful, if you understand the internal Jewish dilemmas about tradition, about contemporary challenges, what modernity is imposing on Jews, both in the Middle East as in North America, how are we going to keep the tradition alive and dynamic? Could that answer or inspire some of the strategies that we are trying to make Islam compelling, engaging, and applicable in North America because of the similarities of the two traditions I mentioned before. It was a worthy experiment. We have a number of alumni taking this experience into many different creative horizons in terms of improving Jewish-Muslim relations where they are, or improving the conditions of the Muslim community based on the leadership that they are providing to Muslim communities.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you do, and or I guess with this particular program did, and the results, that it is very important, I believe, for North America and the world to have this kind of education and dialogue. Um,
I
you
hope it'll inspire young people like you. MLI, Muslim Leadership Initiative, was my new song. It was my attempt to say, what about this one? It was my modest effort to develop and compose a different song that Jews and Muslims can say. But I hope it won't set the bar. It's just an example. I hope young people like you, based on wonderful education that you're receiving in Israel, you will develop even better and more effective new songs that will be singing the heavenly melodies and tunes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You mentioned that Jews and Muslims live in the same places in peace and are quite similar. And I wanted to tell my own small story that I was once in a mosque and I noticed a
Where?
box that said Sadaqah. And I thought
Where
that's
was this? Where was this mosque? Where did you visit?
in Minsk. And I thought that it was probably like the Jewish tzedakah for collecting donations.
Mm-hmm.
There are many similarities between Jews and Muslims. For example, a traveling Jew can pray in a mosque if there is no synagogue in that place. I know that you have been to temples of other religions many times. With what words and feelings do you come to the synagogue and to the church?
Yes, it's both the feeling, but also religious understanding. That if you are in a Jewish space, food is safe, and creedally, theologically, there is no allergies or tension around monotheism, where some aspect of that religion is somehow violating my understanding of, like when you are in a church, understandably, with all due respect, of course, Christianity is a beautiful religion, but that Trinitarian language, which I grew to understand much better later on, and that imagery of God in a human form, that anthropomorphism of assigning a gender, assigning a particular human nature and human qualities to God, is not reconcilable with Islam and Muslim, even though you can technically pray in a church, and I have, but every time it still creates a theological and ethical moral tension that you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel at home spiritually. Whereas when you are in a synagogue, when you're in a shul, and especially when you're in a Sephardic Mizrahi synagogue, it feels like everything is familiar, everything is accessible, everything is in the very similar, almost identical tones. I took many members of the American Jewish communities to synagogues in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Morocco. Here I was in a Shabbat service in Morocco or in Turkey. I, as a Muslim, was going along with the tunes much more successfully than these Ashkenazi Jews, because they feel completely lost. They completely feel out of place, where I feel right at home.
That is great. That is an amazing story, and that is great that we can develop an interfaith dialogue after not an amazing history in those last few years. And yes, I have a traditional question I ask everyone for the last few interviews is if you had an opportunity to ask Allah the only question, what would you ask?
I understand. I speak to God 5 times a day. As an observant Muslim, it's not a hypothetical question for me. It is not a hypothetical exercise. I doubt any religious Jew and Muslims, when you ask this question, if you have one question to God or Allah or Hashem, what would that be? They would give a very immediate answer, because they've been going through this. What I have been asking God Almighty is, how can I, the world is complex, I don't have power, but how can I, Abdullah Antepli, can activate and have access to the power of Islam and religion in general to bring out goodness of the best of myself and the best of everybody around me? That's what I've been asking. In a way, the word is hidayah in Arabic, and you're asking for guidance. You know you can't do it all, and you ask God's intervention and help in living a life in the 24 limited number of hours every day, is to find a way to bring out the goodness of you and the goodness of other people in every interaction that you make. And you want more of that guidance, hidayah, as much as possible.
That is a great answer, and I think many people should at least think on that topic and consider it a way to live by. Thank you so much for doing your holy work of building bridges and understanding the friendship between people of different nationalities and religions, for reminding us all believers that we are truly united by the value of interfaith peace.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. I wish I could do more. This is all I could do with the limitations of my own upbringing and understanding. But I also salute you at the age of 17, 18, already in the path of developing deep root connection to who you are, but at the same time simultaneously reaching out and trying to make sense of the world and improve your people's relationship with everybody, but especially Muslim. I hope that will be an open moral tap on your journey, and I hope you will find every opportunity, inspiration, and power and strength on your way to be as successful, if not more successful, than possible.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the interviews and those beautiful answers. Dear friends, thank you for watching my channel. Happy holidays if you're celebrating any. Please react to the podcast, like, repost. All reactions are very welcome. See you soon on the podcast, Keeping the Faith.